Welcome everyone. Today we are diving into the exciting opportunities for tech entrepreneurs and investors with the UK startup ecosystem. The first part of our discussion will focus on the investment landscape in the UK, exploring the current trends and areas of opportunity for investors. And the second part will shift our attention to the exciting opportunities available for tech founders, highlighting emerging trends and the potential for growth in the years to come. As we start our first part, I would like to invite our first guest, Rami Murad. Rami, good afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Rami Murad. I'm a co-founder and CRO of a company called Equizy, board member and a mentor for various startups across EMEA. And I have been in the investment landscape for the past 15 years of my life. So I hope I can be of value for you today.
Thanks a lot, Rami. And I have a first question. We started talking about the UK as an investment hub. So why the UK is a unique place for investors when it compared to European or other global startup hubs? What makes the UK ecosystem particularly attractive for investors today?
Well, very important question. I remember several times speaking to various peers in the ecosystem about this specific point, and specifically why Equizy is established actually in UK, unlike other places in the world, and definitely UK has its own unique appeal when it comes to the investment landscape, and it's not just only numbers, right? So it's the ability to reinvent itself as a tech powerhouse while staying globally connected with all of its parts. So what makes UK ecosystem attractive today is a combination between legacy and agility. So comparing to other ecosystems across the globe, like unlike Silicon Valley, where often it feels like they're trying to fight all the time to be number one, and that's what is in their mind, or other European investment ecosystem, which is quite fragmented to a certain extent. The UK thrives on cross pollination, if I want to say, where finance meets deep tech and science meets creative industries. So, not to mention that in 2025, investors are no longer just looking for the next unicorn, but rather they are looking for sustainable, scalable companies that solve complex problems, and that's what the UK excels in. This is because it really builds ecosystems rather than building only startups, whether they are AI in healthcare or fintech driving financial inclusions, etc., etc. So the real edge is that the UK isn't really betting on a specific industry, but rather it's betting on the convergence and the diversity of various industries, and that's where the magic happens.
Thanks a lot, Rami, for your contribution. And also, I would like to invite to our discussion John. John, if you also can join our discussion and contribute to the same question. So why do you think the UK ecosystem is very attractive hub for entrepreneurs and investors in particular?
Sure. So very briefly, just a little bit about me. Actually, I was corporate lawyer, then exited founder. Now I invest in kind of early stage companies across consumer and B2B. And now I'm building a couple new companies. So for my sense, I'm back in the back in the mix. I think kind of building on what was said, it is a really good intersection between different geographies. So you obviously have the kind of the bridge between the North American markets and what's happening there, and the European markets. And I know that was kind of touched on already, but it's not to be understated. I think there's a lot of throughfare. People going from SF, using London as the kind of still the gateway to the rest of Europe. Largely because of the cultural and language similarities, and I think that kind of holds true. And then that also, I think, translates into some of the kind of, mentality and approach of entrepreneurs themselves. I think there's a real, there's a real desire and ambition to push to both innovate in terms of kind of what's happening in Europe, but also taking inspiration from the States and other parts as well. Asia is another bit that I think London is fairly well connected because of its kind of historical and cultural roots. And I think that all flows in. And also the regulatory environment is relatively relaxed. I mean, when you're thinking about kind of employment and when you're thinking about talent, compared to a lot of other European jurisdictions, it's a lot easier to find good people and also hire them. And that's not to be underestimated, particularly in the early stages of companies when really your focus is on PMF growing and getting customers, not on all the other administrative burdens you might have.
Thank you so much, John, for your contribution. And also, I would like to invite Matt Black to join our conversation. And also, Matt, you can share a few thoughts on your side.
Yeah, so just introducing myself. So on an investor side, I've made over 300 investments, about 500 million over the many years I've been doing it. It's like over 25 years. And of course, I've lived and worked in the Silicon Valley environment, as well as Australasia, Asia Pacific, and now in the UK. So I've got a nice vision across what it looks like to be an investor in all those three ecosystems. One of the big things about the UK as an ecosystem is that I think it was mentioned by the other speakers, this kind of gateway to Europe idea, the super relationships that the UK has historically through the Commonwealth that unlike other countries might not have segued from, colonialism to partnership, the Commonwealth. If you're in the UK, you've got this whole bunch of countries around the world, including powerhouses like India, which have a really incredible brand value with the UK. They really like and respect the way UK does business. And there's a good relationship there that opens up all sorts of trade routes. And of course, the legal system in the UK is very, very strong. In fact, it's a showcase for many systems around the world. A lot of them are built on the basis of the things that the UK created. So there's a really nice legal platform to move forward. I'm sure that John can probably speak to that as well as a lawyer. He probably knows there's a lot of parallels as well. Each ecosystem's evolved separately, but there's this kind of shared spirit that the UK has with other countries, which really bodes well if you're talking about internationalizing your company, internationalizing your investments. You've got these vehicles you're investing to really have great ways to replicate around the world.
Thank you so much, Matt, for your also contribution about the reason why the UK is an attractive hub for entrepreneurs and also investors. But now we are in 2025, so therefore my next question would be, what are the current trends in the early stage investments in the UK? And if there are any specific industries or technologies that investors should be particularly excited about right now, and when it comes to the UK landscape of investments? John, maybe you also can give a few comments on that.
Sure. So I guess a couple of different lenses you can look at that. One is in terms of the approach from an investor perspective and kind of the mindset there. And the second is what you were kind of also alluding to, which is the actual kind of sectors or areas that are of particular interest. I think for the first one, and I think this kind of permeates across the board, is I think in particularly now, a lot can be done with very little. So I think, and also after kind of some adjustments that were made post the COVID landscape, I think the current investment landscape requires, and rightly so, I think entrepreneurs, particularly in the early stage, to show a lot of traction, show a lot of progress, before going out to raising investment. I think the standards at the earlier stage are higher, and I think that's probably right given how much tooling there is available today. And I think that then obviously comes across in all the different sectors that are of particular interest, and also affects how people look at different sectors. So on the SaaS side of things, I think the interest is across the board. I think largely the traditional philosophy of investing in verticalized solutions holds true. With a lot of the kind of recent advances in AI, there were a lot of generalized products that came to the market. I think now we're looking at, okay, how do you go very deep? How do you solve both, wedge problems that you can get into particularly kind of challenging sectors such as medical, legal, etc., and then continue to build value by going down the problem chain, the value chain for customers. So I think that verticalized approach is very strong. It's something that investors continue to look for. On the consumer side, strong growth, strong traction across all sectors are relevant. I think there's less on social, more on, again, solving particular pain points for individuals, either when you're looking at I think there's been a growing trend on kind of luxury products, particularly with the economic performance of late. TBC how that holds up moving forward. And then, of course, you have the deep tech side of things, which continues to generate interest, whether that's on energy or on the manufacturing side, particularly when we're looking at Europe's future in the next few years.
Thanks a lot, John. It's very interesting contribution. And also, I would like to invite David.
Thanks, Slava. Yeah, great to be here. Really interesting to hear what everyone said so far. As Slava said, my name's David Graham. I'm a multiple exited founder and currently hold a couple of partner positions at Ultra VC, and one soon to be joining, one soon to launch, which is called Resonate One Impact, One Creative. And then I'm a founder of a company called Directly Capital, where, following my last exit, I just wanted to tackle a fundamental truth, which is, while founders need advice, I think most importantly, great ideas need capital. So we try and streamline that fundraising journey and sort of process optimize both the research and the outreach founders are looking for. Just to add, just to build, I think, on, and obviously, in that sort of role, I get to see what the sort of trends are in the market, probably on a day-to-day basis. But to build on what John was saying, I think the days of cheap money are over, and we're obviously in a bit of a reset with the lack of sort of IPOs and M&A activity in the market. So it's sort of a lean time, and therefore investors are looking, for good signs that whatever you're building is going to be profitable. So there's just a lot more risk mitigation in the market. I think other people will talk later about SEIS and EIS, which obviously makes the London market quite unique, or the UK market quite unique, that we have these very sort of very attractive assurances or tax write-offs. But again, even looking at that, I would say that where we would hoped SEIS investment would have driven direct investments in startups, we're even starting to see some portfolio mitigation with that as well. So a tricky time, but I always think these are the times that the wheat gets separated from the chaff. So you need to be building something that is that has purpose, that's really solving a problem, and it's out of these times that some of the better companies are built. I think to post 2008 and the companies that rose out of those times. So
Thank you so much, David, for your contribution. And we discuss about the trends in early stage investments in the UK. So I would like to invite Sherry to join our conversation. Sherry, good afternoon. So if you can please introduce yourself and maybe touch some discussion about if there is some effective partnerships we see in the UK landscape when it comes to investors and supporting organizations as well.
Sure, sounds good. Thanks, Sylvia. Hi, everyone. I'm Sherry. Coming from the investment banking background, where I managed about billions of project finance. And now I'm a CEO of First Impact Partners, where we support climate deep tech solutions. So on the public and private partnerships, I think what I've seen are mostly in the climate space. In general, there are two kinds of the support that the public side normally provides for the startups. That be one is on the resources, so any technical assistance or lab resources the government could provide. And then the second would be the financial support, which in frank terms, that's a grant. But what we've seen also, there are a good momentums of governments providing the resources such as CPI, which is supported by the Innovate UK or UKRI. They have thousands of networks from technical experts and the lab resources for the startups to use. And also grant-wise, UK has normally regular calls. But recently we've seen that UK stopped the SMART grants, which is kind of unfortunate. But there are also issues that grants are normally hard to access. The acceptance rate, I think, is ranging from 3% or below 10% in general. And once a release, it has a quite short time span for the founders to apply. Which also require a lot of documents to prepare. So normally what you have to do is to have 1 year of preparations in advance before the call even start to release. I think what we've also seen, there's efforts to from the government side to solve the issues and how to mobilize the private capitals by building some innovative funding structures, such as blended finance. So this mechanism is basically like, and there's government or public sectors to provide certain instruments, de-risk the solutions or the projects through issuing such as first loss guarantees, and the private sectors would come in after. So I know Innovate UK is discussing some collaborations with National Wealth Fund by building the blended finance structure to support some underserved industries in startups. But it's yet to be seen. I think there's a lot of growth opportunities to unlock more private capitals by using the government resources. And yeah.
Thank you so much for your contribution, and thank you for giving us some kind of overview about these opportunities. And as you said, it's maybe exciting times will come soon about these private and public collaboration opportunities. And my next question probably would be about the rise of interest towards sustainability and social good from investors. And maybe, Sherry, you also can contribute a few words about how do you see the role of impact investments into UK startup scene, and if there is any shift from investors when it comes to combining the profit and purpose.
Yeah, actually, I think, so it's a spectrum. Impact investing, let's say on the left side, you have the philanthropies, which are really, and foundations are not looking for any returns. And the other side, you have the typical investors looking for market rate returns. And you can call all of the players in the spectrums impact investors, because it just depends on what they're looking for. And if in the strict terms, let's say we take the ones in the middle, where you where investors are willing to sacrifice some of the returns to create social and environmental impact. And that part of the systems, we've seen that there's over $1 trillion dollars of asset under management actually are in that bracket. So it is a massive market, and then you see more and more funds and raised under SFDR Article 9, which is very specialized in certain environmental impact and sustainable investment. And they have to report in certain metrics to meet that Article 9 requirement. But I'm even seeing, I would be even seeing for any startups, you may think this may not be part of my concerns. But that also depends on how you look at this, because you could have one side, which is the impact business, where your solutions are really creating the social and environmental impact as your main focus, either as a service or product. Or you have the impact operations, which we consider all kinds of sustainable supply chains, and your human resources and other operations matters needs to meet certain requirements. So I think given so many examples, such as like we see in Silicon Valley banks fall down because of the internal government issues, the impact operations is important for everyone to consider, and a lot more investors are starting to put in pressures of their portfolio companies and trying to get certain data points, understanding if they have the right governance, they have the right mechanisms to make sure the business is running in an impactful way. So for early stage, you may not need to put so much effort into reporting and gathering data, but the later the mature the business you become, this would be having more weight in your operation.
Thank you so much, Sherry, for your set of thoughts on that important question about the sustainability and social impact and possible shift from investors' sides. I would also ask David to contribute to that question.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Sherry did gave a great answer. You covered quite a lot there in terms of certainly the stage piece of what's important and what's not. I mean, there's no denying there's a growing focus, sustainability, social good, ESG. But I would caution and say that returns still matter. And you can sort of see that from the landscape. While there's some dedicated funds, Bethnal Green Ventures, Big Society, a couple I could think about. Mainstream VCs are still prioritizing profitability first and impact second. So I take this with a pinch of salt, and especially given that it's quite a tight market at the moment. But there is definitely some movement sector trend wise. So I would say climate tech, circular technology, health tech, very sort of niche and focused ed tech to a degree. Those are quite sort of those are trending sector wise at the moment. But you've got to offset that against, I think, a lot of investors are worried that it isn't just a greenwashing exercise, right? So I think the market's sort of crying out for some sort of standardized, measurable impact metrics, so that everyone can make their sort of judge on that. I mean, look, I think challenges wise, there's always going to be obviously a longer fundraising cycle where when you've got scalability and defensibility there. Scalability and defensibility. And does it then sort of impact who's buying this, or what does that sort of exit look like? So I'm still remain on the fence. Sadly, I would agree. I will concede that impact is no longer a nice to have, and it's certainly becoming a core to a lot of investment theses these days. But I think they sort of go hand in hand. Investors want one to reinforce the other, not compete, if that makes sense.
Thanks a lot, David, for your contribution to that question. And we are moving on and also want to discuss about the future investment trends. If you speak about the next 5 years, what would be the type of startups or sectors would receive the most investment attractiveness or investment focus? I would like to ask Matt, how should investors align their portfolios with emerging trends like AI, fintech, or any other next generation technologies in order to pick the right focus for next 5 years' time?
Sure. So it depends on what kind of investor you are. Like, obviously, funds have got access to a huge amount of data and a huge amount of ways of really interpreting where the best bets are. But if we're talking about the slightly lower end investors that are investing their own cash or working with syndicates or looking to invest through crowdfunding, I think the slightly larger geopolitical landscape is something you need to consider. The space race is on. Like, it's absolutely on. UK and the EU have declared their stakes in getting some space in this area, so excuse the pun, and really wanting to accelerate outside of what the current boundaries are. There's a huge push from governments, a lot of incentivization, and we ourselves, like, not only am I an investor in the past, but I'm actually general partner on a venture capital as well. So we are looking seriously. We've got a number of people in that space. It's really wide open. It's a bit Wild West. So there's huge amounts of opportunity in there. And I would encourage people to do their right research. But the idea of tacking on to venture capital investments and tacking on to those types of things where they've done their research is a really good bet. But there's lots of opportunity. John mentioned, like, wedge companies. This is really where it's meant to be. These people that are going to make the big deals and get sold out to the likes of Elon Musk are the big fast movers and winners, and some really outstanding performance expected in those areas. And talking about AI, which is another huge growth area, UK is obviously long term. It's been known as a very big fintech hub. We've had a huge amount of unicorns in fintech. We continue to be, as far as exports go, bigger than the whole G7 combined in our financial exports. And so it's a really great place to have a fintech. AI is powering up the ability to interpret and manage huge amounts of data in new ways. So the fintech, I expect for a resurgence in that area. But the other side of fintech is the innovation that we can expect in investment itself. The idea of companies being able to understand the market in new ways, find insights, and find new platforms. So not only are we seeing an elevation in AI-driven companies going to market, but we're seeing AI disruptors and AI use within the intelligence and management of portfolios and investments. So you can expect to look for good players in that area. We ourselves are concentrating. We've got partnerships with, for example, with Equusy, and we're really looking hard at how we can have new technology, and we're actually looking for acquisitions at the moment in startups that are driving that narrative. UK is really well regarded worldwide as a financial hub, and if we can double down on a world space to really stand out in an area, I think that AI could be, hooked with fintech, the big rising star for the UK ecosystem in Europe.
Thank you so much, Matt, for your contribution. And also, I would like to ask Sherry, what is your view how investors should align their portfolios for next 5 years' time, and how they should prioritize the certain technology areas or maybe certain trends in relation to their investment interest?
Yeah, I think the overall the energy transition trend is still happening, and if we look at the longer timeline horizons, in 10 years' time, the amount of the carbons that we need to emit, we need to remove from the air is still quite a lot, and especially in hard to abate industries, which is currently taking 30% of the overall global carbon emissions. So specifically, any solutions in removing the carbons from hard-to-abate industries would be quite interesting. But also, I think investors are normally looking at the shorter timelines, which is like in 5 years, because it's aligned to their investment cycle. So some solutions such as hydrogen, my view is that it will only happen after 10 years for it to pick up. And then we have to look for what are the investable business models or technologies that actually could facilitate the whole energy transition. So either one is that you have the strong IP and the solutions could reduce the cost or improve the efficiency of the decarbonization solutions. That is quite exciting, and then you could use the licensing business model as quite stable and investable. And then the second is that any softwares, and again, software is easy to scale. So any solutions that are able to improve, let's say, grid optimizations or data analytics that can support the corporates to make better decisions in energy transition, that would be also interesting. And I think, yeah, based on like the next 5 years timelines, there are still investable solutions that we can look at, but given the not so stable geopolitics currently, and we really just nobody knows what's going to happen in 5 years in general, but we'll do our best.
Thank you so much, Sherry, for your insights. And also, I would like to invite Rami Murad to join our conversation and share your opinion on that question. What are the next 5 years trends for investments and what the focus should be for investors when it comes to their portfolios?
Perfect. So I'm almost speaking to around 100, peers and stakeholders in the whole investment ecosystem on a monthly basis, and based on their feedback and based on the data that we're collecting from Equity, if the last decade was about scaling technology, then the next 5 years is definitely going to be about redefining the relationship between technology and society. And we can see that, from we can see that the gap that we are witnessing at the moment with the rise of technology, generative AI, and the battle that's happening between various continents, right? So investors who thrive won't just predict trends. They will be backing startups that challenge the rules and the ones that will create entirely new systems of values. So we definitely think that AI is going to be one of the main aspects of the upcoming investment trends, and it won't just be about automation. It will be amplifying human potential. So the most important investable companies will be those that blend AI with human creativity to a certain extent, or with human ethics and the emotional intelligence parts of it, and what's not. So think something like mental health companion, or something like hyper personalized learning platforms, or AI that makes climate prediction faster, understandable, accurate. Not just what we are seeing right now with various AI trends. So on the other end, also, like, climate tech is something that is becoming more essential as we are growing. We don't think that's going to be a specific sector by itself. It will be more or less by default, or like the foundation of any startup moving forward. Fintech is definitely still strong and will continue to be so, and it won't be just about payment processes or gateways and what's not. It will be more or less about financial access and wealth distribution, and the winning models will be those that democratize the access of wealth and finance to a certain extent. And lastly, I think when it comes to health tech and what we are seeing right now with various startups and ideas, is that it will move from trying to treat an illness to unlocking vitality, and possibly becoming super personalized and preventive to a certain extent, not just reactive. So aspects like maybe longevity, mental health, and biohacking will no longer be some random ideas going here and there. They will be more or less shaping our daily activities to a certain extent. So yeah, that's it basically.
Thank you so much, Rami, for your contribution. We just discussed about the future trends and investments when it comes to next 5 years' time. Let's talk about angel investments. Angel investments is always in demand. It's maybe a challenge or sometimes a tricky thing for founders and also investors at the same time. How investors should approach angel investments in the UK? I would like to ask David.
I think, how should angels approach that? I mean, look, in my world, I wish more of them would. But I do understand that we're asking people that typically angels, that isn't the world that they're used to. You see a lot of angels that don't want to do the due diligence, a lot of angels that don't want to act as leads, but we're trying to drive in the other side of trying to get more angels involved in the ecosystem, because obviously we've mentioned it before, although I seem to be the only person that's mentioned it so far, but with SEIS and EIS, this still makes the UK the most active angel investment market, I would say, certainly in Europe, maybe even the world. And it's been quite a sort of godsend, really, because with that sort of activity, with VC struggling to raise from LPs struggling because they haven't seen returns as of yet. EIS and SEIS has really led the way because there's still some activity that goes on at the bottom end of that market. But what are the sort of trends on that? I don't think angel investing is doesn't follow the path of where VCs are looking at the moment. So to Matt's point earlier, I think AI, especially practical sort of applications like fintech, embedded finance, where it's sort of helping with sort of the regulatory part of it. I spoke earlier about sustainability and climate tech. And to Sherry's point, I think there is a lot of opportunity there if you are solving pieces that are driving that. But I think the takeaway is like everywhere else, angels are still very active, but are writing smarter checks. And startups, whether you're a pre-seed, seed, especially a pre-seed, you're probably surprised that you need to be asked for traction. You need to be showing traction a little bit earlier. And that's become because angels just have a lot of deal flow in front of them at the moment, where they can invest at a later stage than say 2, 3, 4 years ago when there was a lot of sort of cheap money around. But my advice, I would say, if you're trying to mitigate any risk in this market, probably look at a syndicate or look to a rolling fund, and look to partners that can do that due diligence, be it a syndicate round. But the question I would say to angels is make sure that that you've got a clear exit strategy before investing. Felt like I went all around the houses on that one, but hopefully I got my point across, Sama.
Thank you so much, David, for your contribution. And that was very insightful when it comes to how angel investors should approach this process in the UK. I also would like to ask John to join our discussion and maybe share a few thoughts on what are the industries or sectors of startup world speaks the most interest from angel investors today.
I think kind of building, David, on what you were talking about in terms of approach, getting a bit of exposure either to syndicate or direct. I think that's really important because depending on your maturity level in terms of angel investing, one of the first things you really need to do is get exposure to a lot of deal flow. You need to see 50, 60 deals before you get a degree of comfort of, what is the market, what is expected, what are the trends. And you'll see those by seeing decks and talking to founders. And so that ties into the trend lines. You'll just kind of get more exposed to it as you're talking to more people. But really easy ways of doing that is, like David, you were saying, joining syndicates, joining groups, maybe some crowd platforms as well, though that's kind of a little bit more on the consumer side. And then also thinking about what you want to get out of angel investing. I think there's broadly two reasons to do it. Number one is to diversify your financial position. Obviously, it's a sector with very slow returns, so you have to mitigate that. And then the second is thinking about, do you actually also want to get exposure, experience, maybe have some fun with it as well? I think a lot of angels are really, going into it to think, okay, how do I help founders? How do I help businesses that I'm interested in? Or how do I learn about new sectors? I mean, that's one of my main motivators is actually, I can only build so many things at the same time. But I want to learn about lots of different things. And actually angel investing is a really good way to get exposure to very different sectors, very different markets, which are hopefully going to help me become a better founder when I'm thinking about my current companies, but also future companies. So there's actually a lot of different perspectives to take into account. And hopefully those all help inform how you approach investing as well.
Thank you so much, John, for your contribution. And we discussed angel investments in the UK. Now it's time to discuss the venture capital in the UK. What makes the UK venture capital unique ecosystem? And if there are any success stories we know which significantly reshaped investments strategies or investment approach when it comes to venture capital. David, I believe you know some insights from that side, please.
I'm trying to be very positive about the VC scene at the moment, but I keep sort of coming back to the point that it's tough out there. VCs are finding it tough, because LPs haven't really seen returns, and we're in a bit of a reset. But maybe I'm painting too dark a picture. And again, I think the UK, especially again, it depends what stage you're talking at. Obviously, I don't know, what did I hear the other day that made me sort of giggle a little bit is that the British Empire turned into a bank. Essentially, I still see that. So I think the VC market, family office market, private equity market, super strong later on, stage-wise, and then earlier stages, I would say late seed, Series A, well supported by again the EIS, a bit of that scheme, if it's syndicated in a way, but VCs again, we've got a good sort of cross section of that, and then and a lot of the panelists have touched on this before. The UK has got some really, really deep sector strengths. Fintech, obviously, I think is making a run at AI. Life sciences, we do these things pretty well in the UK, and then look, the last thing the last bit I would say about what makes the UK VC scene unique. I mean, often people talk about it as a bit of as a stick or as a disadvantage to probably disadvantage is a better word, as a disadvantage to say the US. But the UK is far more capital efficient than the US. The US is far more patient. I think UK investors, be it VCs, be it angels, push for profitability a lot earlier. The valuations, I think, are often a lot more realistic. But can't get away from be it the UK or the US, we're still waiting for some of those sort of liquidity events to happen. And then Slava wanted me to touch on the sort of recent success stories. in terms of IPOs and MAs, not many at the moment. I mean, I think there's some really good, there's some really good funding rounds that are creating unicorns, Synthesia, Wave, M&As. They are the M&A fund, probably looking at Go Henry, which was acquired 2 years ago. But I really sort of struggled when I was looking around what happened in 2024. Maybe I'm missing something, and it's all sort of rolling into one. But yeah, not too many IPO or MA success stories at the moment. Who else can I think of? I can't really. A B0 Carbon, Quantexa maybe. A couple of those, but again, just sort of really good valuations on P's and E rounds, etc. So yeah, we're all sort of judging success at the moment on big fundraisers. But like I said, I think the end of quantitative easing, high interest rates has just slowed that M&A and public market piece, and maybe VCs are holding on a lot longer. But yeah, again, I always see optimism in that. Is like it's when we see great companies rise out of these sort of situations, and so I think we'll see some big winners in 5 years time.
Thank you so much, David, for your contribution in discussing venture capital landscape and some recent stories about this. To continue that conversation, I think it would be very interesting to discuss exit strategies or exit opportunities for investors in the UK. And if there are any specific trends in exits or any opportunities for merging and acquisition deals, IPOs, or any other channels to exit for investors, Matt, I would like to invite you to our conversation, and maybe you can reflect a bit on the exit opportunities for investors.
Yeah, absolutely. So, building on what David says, I know that reasonably well, and looking at this through a lens of more traditional, larger venture capital, he's absolutely right. It's a very bleak landscape. In fact, in many countries around the world, they expect very few IPOs at all. But last year, there was an uptick in M&A. I think over the previous year, 380 odd declared M&A deals. But what's happened is globally, we've seen a lot of the ventures being crunched down, very little access to large capital funds, very difficult to raise. A lot of them are collapsed. But you look at that through a different viewpoint. As David also mentioned, 2008, we saw the rise of the most spectacular global companies that we see today out of those kind of financial turmoil. And so it's investors that invest smart and right now that will see those huge gains in the future and might get shares in, early shares in the next Google or the next Apple or whatever happens to be the case. So this is a really good inflection point. And I think I mentioned in the previous thing around space, around AI, around major structures in these areas. John mentioned these kind of wedge companies cracking open these industries, all super interesting. What I see now in the UK especially is the rise of these kind of micro VCs. We see it kind of a lot of interaction with retail investors. There's a huge flux in retail investors. There's a huge opportunity for people with only small pots of money to get involved rather than having to wait for big LPs to form, get behind big venture capital. That landscape is starting to shift. We're looking at these micro VCs, these kind of impact-based investors. Bethnal Green was mentioned. We're looking ourselves at these kind of alternate funds where people can invest not just a bit of time, but IP as well as cash. These are all the essentials that startups need. So we're taking it down a couple of rungs from go and compete with 1,000 other people to get £1 million and above with those high watermarks that are involved in that, to really bring that down and micro fund, micro support these companies over slightly longer term, really helping them get where they need to go. And of course, because of that knowledge coming down, trickling down, venture capital is usually a repository for good investors to take a hands-off view and say, here's some money, invest it wisely based on your thesis. And you don't get that with some of these other models like crowdfunding. You still have to ultimately make the call. Whereas these micro VC format, which is emerging at the moment, is kind of a still bit of hands off. You can still read a thesis. You can still kind of say, yeah, I love this industry. I like where they're going. I trust these lead investors, these general partners to guide me in the right direction. But we're accessing these much smaller pots, much faster moving startups. Yes, sometimes with a little bit more risk, but I tell you what, the rewards are outstanding. So if you're talking in these early stage companies, they move very, very quickly. And so even venture capital sometimes doesn't have the ability, especially in a market where there's very little big cash from PE, to move quickly, to form funds, to take up new trends. So have a really good look as an investor about these kind of micro environments. I think that'll be a great steer for you.
Thank you so much, Matt, for your contribution on exit opportunities for investors. David, maybe you also can add a few lines on that question as well.
Yeah, I mean, I completely and utterly agree with Matt. I think his assessment of what the trend will be over the next sort of 5 years is spot on. You know, maybe he agrees or just doesn't agree with me, but I do think you know, the joy of companies getting to profitability a lot sooner and sort of standing on their own 2 feet at a far earlier stage. And again, maybe Matt will agree or disagree, but I do think we will see a rise in the secondary market that will feel far more structured than it is now. You see a real sort of lack of a secondary market when people can hang on and valuations are high, and you can keep going through those stages, and eventually someone pushes you to an IPO. Whereas I see a rise of a secondary market when it isn't there. But if you're showing a great return and someone can value on quite a hard metric, that's where a secondary market comes to play. So just a quick add on there to say we might see a growth. We might see a growth on that.
Thank you so much, David, for your contribution as well, and that was very interesting comments. Just to summarize, we discussed multiple things about angel investments, venture capitals, the trends and forecasts. To conclude, what should international investors know about the UK in 2025 in relation to their interest to the market now, or maybe in next 3-5 years' time? So, Rami, if you can give us the short summary of what investors should be thinking about when it comes to investment landscape in the UK.
Yeah, 100%. So the first thing that comes to mind is fintech and AI, right? Like this is what UK is famous for. But definitely, I think the better question would be what else should international investors know about the UK in 2025? So forget about the kind of headlines, and let's look into the real story that's happening behind the scene. So over the next 3 to 5 years, we definitely expect that the UK won't be about single sector wins anymore. It will be more or less about trying, as I've mentioned in the original answer in the previous question, that UK is more diversified and they are more pushing towards systems innovation. So the smartest international investors, in my opinion, won't be chasing the hottest startups anymore, or only. They will be, backing the infrastructure that powers the entire ecosystem in general. So let's look at beyond London, which is the flagship of UK. Let's look at cities like Manchester or Cambridge or Edinburgh. They are quietly building, if I want to say, specialists, hubs in terms of climate tech or quantum computing or biotech and what's not. These sectors that won't just define the UK economy, but also will define the world's futures. This is very, very important point to look into. So if you are an investor and you are looking into investing in UK 2025 moving forward, definitely come to Equity. We were happy to welcome you here. But of course, don't just ask who's raising the biggest round or who's the blockbusters of articles and trends in the market, but also ask for who's quietly rewriting how industries work behind the surface. So that's where the next decades of giants, in my opinion, will come.
Thank you so much, Rami, for your overview of the investment landscape now in 2025 and also the future trends. It was amazing discussion about investments in the startup ecosystem in the UK. I would like to thank Rami, Matt Black, and David, and John, and Sherry. Thank you very much for your contributions and all these valuable thoughts you shared today. Now we would move to our second part to talk about the opportunities for entrepreneurs and startup founders in the UK. Stay tuned for a very short switch on for our second part. Welcome everyone. Today we are diving into the exciting opportunities for tech entrepreneurs and investors with the UK startup ecosystem. It's our second part of the discussion where we shift our attention to the exciting opportunities available for tech entrepreneurs, highlighting emerging trends and the potential for growth in the years to come. Talking about the UK startup landscape and opportunities for entrepreneurs and founders, I would like to invite Marco to join our conversation and share a few thoughts about why do you think that UK is a unique space for entrepreneurs and unique space for founders to succeed and build their own ventures. Marco, please introduce yourself and share your thoughts.
Hi, Slava. Thank you, and thanks, and welcome to your audience. It's always a pleasure to join your events. I've been collaborating with you as an advisor for startups for a few years now. So I think we have been working on a quite few projects together. Let me jump into the topic. UK as a great point for startups. Well, I think there are different reasons. First of all, let's look at the position of the UK and the geopolitical situation. UK left Europe, but geographically speaking, is very close to Europe. At the same time, it has a very strong strategic relationship with the US. And let's not forget its history, Commonwealth. So in one place, you gain the benefit of having a facilitation in the access and collaboration with Europe, US, and the Commonwealth. Let's not forget that the UK is also in the mid in terms of time zone. In the morning, you can work with Asia and eastward. In the afternoon, you can work with South America, North America, and the US. As an ecosystem is very good, very often startups look for investors. And the UK, with I think 30 billion invested in it from VC, is the best market in Europe. There are many other advantages. First of all, there is a supportive business environment. The system is very transparent. You can set up a company in a few hours online through the company has website, which of course helps a lot. Then, if we want to continue, there is access to talents. Let's not forget the UK has top universities and top research programs where you can, as a startup owner, of course, find very, very valuable resources. And why not? Even Rami before was talking about the apps and the different ecosystems that are growing. We always think about London in terms of startup, but as a matter of fact, Cambridge is growing in sustainability, and Oxford, the deep tech, and so on and so forth. Edinburgh, Manchester, they were mentioned before. the access to the global market, which I already said. And last but not least, let me remember the support, the tax incentives. Corporation tax at the moment is 25%, which as far as I know is lower than Germany and France. And admittedly, I don't know the corporate tax for all the countries, but it's considered a very favorable one. And there are tax incentive schemes to support startups. So I would say these are among the main benefits that startups would find here in the UK.
Thank you so much, Marco, for your contribution and discussion about why the UK is place to be when it comes to building your own tech startup venture. I also would like to invite Adi to join our conversation and share your view of why do you think UK startup ecosystem is the great place for entrepreneurs. Before that, please introduce yourself and share a few thoughts about your background as well.
Thank you, Slava, for the invitation, first of all, and I would like to say hi to everyone who would be watching. First of all, I'm Adi, co-founder at GrowWise. GrowWise is a startup, B2B SaaS startup in the UK, based in London. We help hospitality businesses streamline their internal operations in terms of reducing costs and waste. It's an inventory management platform, and we are the simplest one on the market. We've been thriving, let's say, in the UK, in London. I must say, so coming from Bulgaria, I came in the UK in 2010 when I did my master's, and I've been thriving since for the last 15 years in London. I mean, just look at what Marco was saying earlier. It's amazing what's happening in terms of geopolitical situation and location. UK is so close to Europe, and then at the end of the day, it's not very far away from the US. But for me, London is not only London, but we've got Manchester, Bristol, Edinburgh, Cambridge, Oxford. We have so many big cities in the UK where the startup ecosystem is thriving. But also look at the number of people. It's a small island, but then we have around 70 million people living in the UK. It's the best place where you can even test your products if it's B2C. If it's B2B, we have topics at the moment like AI, automation, fintech, sustainability. And one other thing that I must mention is when we set up GrowWise in 2020, just before the pandemic hit, we were all over London in networking. I can't even emphasize how important networking is for business, because business is done by people, and just bringing that connections onto the table, whether it's I recently spoke to Matt, who would be joining later, but you need to like the people who you work with, and London gives you this. It's like an epicenter of all businesses concentrated in one place. And then let's talk about talent. You've got so many international people graduating from universities in the UK. It's the ecosystem is amazing, and I can't recommend it enough. It's the place to be if you want to be a startup. Start from London, the UK. You've got access to Europe. You've got access to the US. For me, UK is like the Silicon Valley of Europe, and then though the UK is following the US, and then Europe is following, Central Europe is following the UK, and then I come from Bulgaria, Southeastern Europe, we are following the pace of Europe, UK, and the US. So if you are positioned in the UK, you've got access to all of those markets, and you've got access to finance, you've got access to mentorship, which is extremely important, you've got access to advisors, and everything is extremely highly concentrated. For me, this is the best place to start a business.
Thank you so much, Adi, for your reflection on why do you think this is the place to be when it comes to building a tech startup. Now, I also would like to invite Ala to join our conversation and share your opinion. Why do you think that UK landscape is a very attractive place for tech entrepreneurs?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Slava, for having me. Just quick words about myself. So I'm the co-founder, CEO of Equizy. I'm also startup mentor, VC scout, investor relations, supporting different startups for investment readiness and fundraising. Also, we are working with some VCs for deal sourcing and manage the relationship. So it's good question. So already Marco and Adi already covered the answer, but what I want to add on top of what they have said is four important points, which is Access Funding. London is still the global financial hub, giving startup plenty of opportunity for fundraising, starting from angel investors and venture capital. And this answer now is for entrepreneurs they want to build out or create a business in London, or for international investors they would like to invest in UK startups, right? So number one is the Access Funding. Number two is the strong startup community, which is the best place. And this is why we opened Equizy here in London, why we chose London, which is in the middle of the world, right? It's near for Europe, USA, even GCC, and the time zone, which is the important part. And as Marco said about the university, still the skill talent pool, the UK's top universities and the culture of innovation produce really a good opportunity for early stage startup to hire and to find the best employees for them. And the most important part, which is the last one, and really I want to stress this point, in London or UK in general, it's not just finding investors or finding someone who can give you the money. It's not about money. You need to looking for something beyond the capital, right? Which is strategic partners. They can really help you to scale your business. I think this is the main points that UK is the best place in the world to start your business right now and to scale up.
Thank you so much, Alar, for your reflection of why the UK is the great place to be for tech entrepreneurs. And our speakers also mentioned about the importance of networking and opportunities to get mentorship support. And there are multiple programs exist in the UK for startup founders. There are many accelerators, incubators, and mentorship programs. How should early stage founder go about choosing the right one when there are so many options available? And what the specific resource they can expect to gain from joining such programs? I would like to invite Yanis to join our conversation. Yanis, good afternoon. If you can introduce yourself and share your view how founders can navigate in selection the right program for them.
Thank you, Slava. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with all these great guests. So my name is Yanis Iliopoulos. I'm a senior academic and I'm also a startup advisor. I've been also a co-founder and I'm recently transitioning into angel investment. The access to resources is one of the most important aspects of what makes the UK ecosystem such a great place to start your tech startup. And it's interesting that as the environment gets more mature, we can see this nuance in the resources, in the access to resources. You can see the university-affiliated accelerators and incubators. You can see sector-specific accelerators. You can see equity-based programs, non-equity programs. And you can see, for me, which is the most important part of what I do, the startup communities. So the startup communities are essentially what can get you from point zero to this early stage traction and that small critical network that will open the door to these bigger opportunities. And in my experience, the startup communities in London can provide a very high quality level of resources when it comes to navigating the global ecosystem, not just the UK ecosystem. And I've also noticed that recently, in the last few years, as I've been navigating this environment, the willingness of certain key players to support early stage startups has increased a lot. And my assumption is that, as there's more nuance in our ecosystem and there's more growth and there's more maturity and there's more expertise, there's also more capacity to transfer the knowledge at an early stage. And being part of communities like the one that, Elegant Club has built and other similar initiatives, I think makes a huge difference to give you that initial push that you need. But also, as I've been a senior academic and I've designed programs for PhD students for Imperial College, and I've seen also the amazing work that the Imperial Enterprise Lab are doing. So when it comes to deep tech and when it comes to research-based startups, UK is definitely leading the scene in Europe. There's a lot of investment from big organizations. There's a lot of structure. I would say that probably after the US, UK is the only environment that have managed to systemize and productize how accelerators can work within a university environment. So you're having all this diversity of support coming from higher education, coming from sector-specific accelerators, coming from very bespoke programs, and coming from very supportive, inclusive, diverse startup communities.
Thank you so much, Yannis. Indeed, it's a great place in terms of supporting mechanisms and some kind of the facilities provided for founders. I also would like to ask Matt. Matt, you're also on supporting sides. What's your view on how to select the right program for you if you're just about to dive into the startup ecosystem in the UK? There are so many options available. What would be the right steps to take in order to find the appropriate place for yourself?
So I've been in the UK ecosystem for about 20 years now. So what I hear is a lot of different feedback from startups. I've been on this accelerator, I've done this was awful, or this was fantastic. I've gone to this huge networking event. I've got, literally I've seen someone with a stack of cards this high. Look how successful I've been. And my answer to that is, well, you're successful at collecting cards. I'll give you that. The important thing is, whatever community you join, whatever you do, it's about what you want to get out of it. Be really focused about the missing resources, the missing connections, the things within your business and the skill sets that you have, the connections for industry that's going to get you where you want to go, and use that metric. So some internal thinking first, then look for the communities that are going to work for you. And then within those communities, don't collect cards, collect great partners, collect great opportunities. So if you apply to various accelerators, be clear about, I'm not just having it on my resume to say, I joined an accelerator, look at me, give me some money from cash investors. Do it for purpose. The really great founders that I invest into as a general partner of Startup Engine is businesses that are led by people that are being smart about their time and the partnerships they're creating. It was mentioned before by a previous speaker, this idea, I think it was Allah, about this strategic partnerships. Strategic partnerships are key to success. It's understanding where you are as a founder and who's going to help you get to the next level, especially when it comes to the catch-22 of, we haven't got very much resource, we haven't got very much knowledge, and we definitely haven't got very much money. But we want to get to these inflection points of market proofs, traction, product market fit. We want to get MVP to get access to those pools of money in the more traditional sense. So that's the challenge. But the UK has got a fantastic ecosystem. You just have to get out there and be smart about it.
Thank you so much, Matt, for your reflection about being selective and knowing your purpose and also what you want to get out of your supporting organizations. I would like to ask Adi as well to reflect. You mentioned that you since 2010 in the UK, so I assume you know a lot about different supporting programs. What's your view on that? How to select the right one?
Thank you again, Slava. I think the guys before me obviously captured quite a lot, and I like what Matt mentioned. It was about being selective. There's so many programs out there. There's so much support for startups, but there's so little time. We only have 24 hours a day. So how do you best spend your time? And as I said earlier, business is done by people, and it's not about the business cards and how many people you meet, but it's, are they the right people? Am I at the right place? Am I making the right connections? And do I have the time to nurture that relationship? And this is where, there's a lot of people doing businesses coming from, let's say, someone lives in Bulgaria, they come to meet people in London, but at the end of the day, it's just one meeting is not going to make it. You need to nurture a relationship. You need to stay in the ecosystem and thrive in it, as we mentioned earlier. But I've been part of some accelerators, and what I would advise any startups would be to select the program that whatever you need to achieve, select the program for that. For example, I've been part of investment readiness programs where, okay, so I need to be a little bit more in tune of what's the best way to fundraise, where are the gaps that I need to cover, what type of people I need to meet, whether as well, do I need to make more founder relationships in terms of you need to be in the ecosystem where you would like to get warmer connections. Do I need to meet more investors? Do I need more potential strategic partners? Because what Matt said again, it's all about building partnerships that will drive you forward. So this is an overview from my side, but it's people, and be very selective where you go and how you spend your time.
It was very helpful advice, especially for those entrepreneurs who are just about to join the UK startup ecosystem. And also what's been mentioned before, the universities, they play a significant role in supporting entrepreneurs and startup founders. I would like to invite the Dr. Spinder to join our conversation and also maybe highlight and maybe give us some thoughts about how UK universities support and leverage the research, talents, and maybe entrepreneurship in general.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Yes, universities are very powerful in this. We, at one level, we run academic courses. So we have undergraduate modules, we have undergraduate modules and programs and master's programs and modules within other programs. So that's at one level. But then the wider university offers so much more. We also have arms, the infrastructure of the university, where we have entrepreneurship societies that can actually help develop young entrepreneurs, help them blossom. We have what's known at the University of Westminster, where I work, for example, we have the Westminster Entrepreneurs Network, where we have lots of expertise from outside the university, where accomplished entrepreneurs help potential startup businesses and students, and and also other startups from outside in the vicinity. So there's lots and lots of opportunities for entrepreneurs. We have entrepreneurs in residence that help other entrepreneurs. So there's a wide array of help that can be provided. Another opportunity is to get involved with universities if you are not a student, and you can do that through various organisations and calls. And staff also undertake projects with entrepreneurs. So that's one way of getting into a university and really getting to know what we offer you as well.
Thank you so much for your contribution. As you mentioned, that's a significant, a very important role of supporting entrepreneurship from the UK universities. And I would like to invite our next speaker, Liliana Kaimakan, and ask her about how the universities support entrepreneurship and startup initiatives in the academia. Liliana, please, if you can introduce yourself and share your view on the role of universities in that support.
Hello, Slava. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to join this session. I'm Liliana Kaimakan, Professor of Marketing and Entrepreneurship at HALT International Business School, and also working with a wide range of startups as advisors, supporting them in developing their marketing strategy and basically engaging better with their customers, I think, which is a critical element when you talk about startups and really the opportunity to grow, knowing who is your customers and how you can engage with them. Building on your question, I think key point where universities play an important role, it is first of all really supporting students to develop their idea, and that's exactly what we are doing at HALT International Business School, where we have HALT Founders Lab. It's an incubator where we support students, basically bringing to life their ideas, refining them into propositions which can later on become enterprising startups and really build something coherent and concrete. I think what is interesting, first of all, there is a wide range of knowledge within the academia environment, but also opportunity and space where we can engage, students can engage with specialists, with experts, can collaborate, can engage with different other universities. So exchange basically information, details, access to kind of various other incubators or accelerators, being part of this ecosystem as they are already here, which will allow them to engage with different other like-minded people, find maybe their co-founders, for example, present their ideas in various environments, and also make sure that can go further on and access investment in the moment when the business becomes really something which exists, and they can of course build it further. I think beyond this one, definitely there is, universities are a very strong source of talents. So I think Ben touched a bit earlier this point, but definitely also many of the students coming to UK come from different other parts of the world. They are looking forward to really develop their business idea within this environment. So they can become a source of talent for other businesses, or by creating their own startup. I would say probably the third aspect to which worth mentioning is very much about the knowledge existing within the academia environment through research, which can come from different areas, can be about understanding the entrepreneurship ecosystem, understanding different areas of this one, supporting students or entrepreneurs in developing their ideas and bringing them to life, prototyping, testing. I think there is quite a lot of going on, and we see a very strong focus from various universities here in London and overall in UK in building this a very strong ecosystem for startups. So I think that probably will be some of the key things, but trust there will be some of my colleagues able to add some other thoughts.
Thank you so much, Liliana, for your contribution. I also would like to ask Yanis to join that discussion and maybe share your view of the role and particular impact universities do in supporting and fostering entrepreneurship innovation in the UK.
Of course. So I've seen the high end of the university ecosystem, how they operate, and it's quite impressive on the mechanisms that the lead universities are building in order to build momentum for all these research-based and more well-founded, essentially, and market-validated startups. But what I find also very fascinating is the effort that smaller universities are putting into assisting students identifying the essence of the problem they're solving. So I think that it's quite important that universities have the knowledge and expertise to cultivate the right mindset. So that sort of focused attention on the problem, that sort of determination to fail fast and identify why you're failing, iterate, improve your performance. So for me, it's quite interesting to understand that the university ecosystem provides that context and that curation that is necessary when you're exposed to that wealth of information, because everyone raised that point before, I think, from the previous speakers, that you have to be selective, you have to filter all these opportunities. There's a very high quality of information, but there's also a very high quantity of information. So at the beginning of this journey, this information is quite overwhelming. And this is where the value of the university ecosystem comes into place, because it embeds all of these industry challenges in the actual curriculum, and then it builds that sort of pathway between transitioning from the academic environment to competing into the marketing environment. And I also see, I've been involved in a startup as a mentor. We received a small grant of £7,000 a few years ago just to be able to get some trademarks for the UK and the US. And that small intervention that came from a university accelerator built the confidence of the team to start publishing that idea more and not afraid that the idea will be stolen, and that's what the application of the idea will be stolen. And I saw how this little stepping stone became the foundation for this project to develop a lot of momentum. And now I think they're generating more than $1.5 million in revenue. And it all started with a small intervention, mentoring. Here is £7,000. You can get your trademarks and move on to the next level.
Thank you so much, Yanis. What you just mentioned, it's very crucial because the universities provide a very safe support environment where the founders, they can pitch, they can present, they can innovate. And as Yanis mentioned, getting the support and they getting some validation of the ideas they work on. We also want to discuss a bit more about the networking opportunities and communities which exist in the UK. Marco, if you can join and share your view and your reflection of the different communities in the UK. How do they support founders? And maybe one more time, how to select the right one?
Thanks, Slava. And yes, already Liliana, Yanis have been developing this concept, which is very crucial. And this is another element. For startup to strive, they really need to have this sort of environment where they can share, where they can brainstorm, where they can learn from each other. From this point of view, universities in the UK have been at the forefront of managing and curating events and opportunities for network. I experienced them personally myself because I'm part of the alumni of one of the business schools in London, and there are plenty of events, there are plenty of opportunities for people to meet, and these events are very often open to everybody else, so they are not closed to alumni, what I mean to say. And so the opportunity to meet, to brainstorm, to talk, to share experience, to learn from other mistakes or from other journeys, from the journeys of other people, that is very, very important. And many universities do that. As I said, experienced that in London, but I'm sure is all around the UK. And if may I also, I would like to add a last thing, because I experienced personally, and it's very dear to me actually. Another way that the academic environment in the UK prompts the collaboration with very small companies. So they would be startups and not really early stage, but just when they start having revenues, will be through different programs of partnerships. One in particular that I want to mention is the Knowledge Transfer Partnership, the KTP. The reason why, because that is how I personally started my professional journey here in the UK almost 20 years ago. So it's collaboration to favor the knowledge transfer from academia research to small companies that implement, commercialize, and develop that know-how. So yes, I hope I covered all the points. And again, university can be a really good point of contact with the rest of the network, including investors, including mentors and advisors.
Thank you so much, Marco, for your reflection. And also, I would like to ask Alar to reflect on that discussion about the role of communities and some networking circles in supporting entrepreneurs, how to find the right one, where to go, and maybe how to start, please.
Sure. Thanks, Slava. So I think Marco and Yanis already they covered the majority of them, but just I want to stress few points. Now, founders in UK, they can tap into different communities, different events. But what we have seen the past 6 months, there is different type of accelerators, incubators supported by universities, by government, or something coming from the private. But what we are still advising all the startups or all entrepreneurs to build this relationship with everyone, starting from accelerators, incubators, which is the best place to start, especially for early stage startup and early stage founders. Number 2 is the events. Also, there's a lot of events here. You can start build your community. You can start validate your ideas. You can hire co-founders. You hire employees, and this is how we can start. And really, it's come to the question about what do you need? What do you need to achieve from this relationship, to be on this event, or to be part from this accelerator program. But the most important one, and I think here why we are partnering with Elegant Club is providing, because Elegant Club is providing this access to the startups and the founders in terms of mentorship, advisors, different type of advisor and strategic partnerships, and also, as Matt mentioned, our relationship with his venture, that Startup Engine, that they are not only supporting startup with funding, but also beyond the capital, they are supporting them to gain more tractions, to potential introduction for someone. And also, we know some startups, they manage to have achieve sales for their startups because they be part from events created by one of the university here in London, and also from events that becoming part from accelerator programs. So where do they start? They need to start from accelerators, incubators. They need to start building a good relationship with the strategic partners. And if they are looking for fundraising, they are start using platform also similar to Equizy or other than Equizy, but to start build this relationship with potential investors, angel or VCs in the early stage. This is to get their feedback, to build that trust, because trust is the most important part. Connection is the most important part for any startups or any founders, because this is the asset they have right now.
Thank you so much, Ala, for your reflection. And I would like to back to Adi and ask your reflection of how to start, where to go. Maybe there are some tips on making it successful.
Thank you, Slav. I'll probably go a little bit in a different direction than Ale went for, because accelerators and incubators are not really accessible to anyone. You need to be selected to be part of those accelerators and incubators overall. What I would advise any founder and startups to go for is go into communities. Whether it's when you go on LinkedIn, there's just so many communities out there for founders communities. There's communities around co-working spaces. There's a lot of networks for entrepreneurs, but it could be as well. For me personally, I've tapped into female founders, female entrepreneurs networks, where there's a lot of support for female founders. Like, I've recently been selected, because it's not that everyone can get selected, but I would advise startups to try and be part of those programs. I was recently selected as part of the JP Morgan female leadership program, and a few others. So tap into all the networks you can, but again, as we'll keep mentioning, be selective what you would like to achieve, what networks you would like to build connections with, and then one connection leads to another connection. It's connecting dots, like connecting people is connecting dots, and then it helps you also define your idea or define your product or build strategic partnerships, as we've mentioned earlier. But it's the ecosystem here, the networks, brilliant. I think sometimes it's very difficult to select which ones are the ones for you, because you need to, there's always dilemma. Do I go to this one or that one? Because there's every single day, there's an event for a startup founder.
Thank you so much, Adi. As you mentioned, there are so many options available. And also I would like to ask Matt to join our discussion, maybe reflect on your side as a supporting body for entrepreneurs, where to go, how to select the right one, and make sure that it's the right choice, leading to some right results.
So I mentioned before about really understanding what your business is and what the gaps are on the journey. Some early stage entrepreneurs don't really fully understand the journey moving forward. I mean, I've had 12 companies on my 12th at the moment, and you get better and quicker over time. And I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs, so I know very well what it takes to build a company. One of the things I would say is, apart from just knowing your own game, knowing where you want to go, if you have gaps, look for a good community where people are there for the right reasons. So I've volunteered to speak at a number of universities, some of which that are represented here on this call, and others as well. I've got good relationships with all universities, and I volunteer for them to give back to those communities. Sure, I get opportunity, I get exposed to opportunities, but those are the types of people you want to look for in an accelerator, in a community. Is the community attracting the kind of level of talent, the level of mentors, the level of investors? Are they on one side very business focused? Are they very much looking for clear outcomes from people that are participating in that community? So therefore you can match what you're trying to achieve with them? And are they attracting, as an organization, really good individuals, which are there for the right reasons? They're not there just to get a deal. They're not there just to get whatever. You know, I see a lot of the same faces at a lot of events I go to, people like Allah from Equisea, you know, really good people that are interested genuinely in helping startups move forward. And those are the types of people you want to really reach out to, obviously in a professional way. Don't, you know, respecting their time. As an investor myself, I value my time highly, and how you build those relationships, that's another discussion on another level. But I think that if I was looking today to join communities, which I am part of, you know, I connect with university networks. I connect with various accelerators. My partners actually in my business, my investment partners, they actually actively join and mentor within accelerators, and we get exposure to those types of environments. So look for the connectivity. How committed is this community to growth? What do they want to achieve out of it? And what kind of people do they attract? They're going to help you get where you want to go.
Thank you so much, Matt, for your reflection on how to be selective and find the right community for yourself. We already discussed today about investment trends and some future opportunities for investors. How about founders? How about future trends for entrepreneurs? Where to put the attention, what to focus on when it comes to technologies, the recent trends in AI, green technology, mobility, blockchain. There are so many things nowadays which we see in the media. And my question would be probably, what is the next move, or what is the next trend to focus on when you aim to build your own venture in next few years' time? I would like to ask Liliana, and maybe also to ask not just about the technology side, but what are the trends when it comes to consumers and when it comes to our users of the products we build as entrepreneurs?
Thank you very much, Slava. I think definitely there are few clear directions if you look to the macro trends and mega trends. So and how basically these are shaping the preferences of the consumers, and which will lead further to development of various businesses fitting and developing in that particular areas. I will start mentioning few of them, which I think are really impactful in this moment. And of course, probably we can spend quite some time diving into others. Of course, technology, AI are at the front end of everything, so it is very important an integration and to include this in whatever developing and building a startup idea. It may not be necessarily something which is about technology itself, but basically integrating this aspect into product development, customer engagement. That will be also something which is required, because will allow startups to really deliver faster, better, easier solutions for their consumers and better engage with them. I would say probably another really big trend will be around sustainability and an impact-driven type of businesses. So definitely there is a huge focus, if you talk about Europe and especially in UK, around sustainability, about really building businesses with a higher impact when you talk about people, planet, or society. And I think these are also one which tends to be preferred by investors. They can get easier, investments as long as they create something which will either reduce the impact on the planet or will have a positive impact towards the people around us. Moving to the consumer side, I think health and wellness, it's a very big trend. So we live in really in changing environment, which impact also us as individuals. And we've seen what happened when we had been exposed to the pandemic. the ones who've been the weaker ones have been the ones which have been impacted the most. So I think really creating solutions which will allow people to improve their living conditions, to basically have a better, healthier life. It's something which we see happening very much, and there is a big trend. And that can come from anything like food and beverages to going further on to other sectors. So we have like around fitness, around wellness, around a better lifestyle, and so on. Definitely around fintech and technology. That's another big area where we see a lot of development and various companies really engaging and building up solutions, alternatives to the classic or to existing type of solution, whether it's around banking or there is other sectors that become really popular and big areas of growth. Probably a question here would be, is there any further space for businesses to be developed or to be created in these areas? My answer will be always yes, as long as you identify a clear niche and a space to focus on the consumers to be able to engage, and you start by understanding them very well and understanding their needs. So I would say there should be a very clear connection between this trend and consumer needs, and bringing this together and answering to these needs in the best way possible.
Thank you so much, Liliana, for such a comprehensive, detailed overview of what are the future trends. I would like to ask Marco also to join our discussion and share your view. Maybe you can tackle also a few things about the sustainability trends, the movements of being more sustainable and socially driven, if there is any space for entrepreneurs to contribute to these directions as well.
Yeah, thanks, Slava. And indeed, I think it has already been eloquently covered by Liliana. But for example, there is a study from, just to have a wider perspective, okay, this is not specifically related to the UK, and then I can add something. But in terms, for example, of a study that was done by the largest investment institute in the world, the BlackRock Investment Institute, they identified 5 mega forces, 5 mega trends. And these are at the same time the mega forces, they mean the highest risk, but also the highest opportunity, the best opportunities for investment. And they are indeed AI, demographic, so the fact that how the demographic is evolving and the services needed for demographic audiences of population, low carbon transition, then finance, with particular reference to fintech, and the segmentation of the value chain. So these are the 5 mega trends that have been identified by BlackRock. You asked me about sustainability, and that's a great question, because as you know, because of my corporate jobs in this area, I'm particularly involved in clean tech, renewables, and the overall sustainability. I have to say that the UK seems to be moving quite well in that direction, and there are various nowadays. In the past, not really, but nowadays I see more and more initiatives in terms of accelerators, incubators, and communities. See, for example, Carbon 13 in Cambridge, but it's one of many, in any case, that are involved specifically in the development of clean tech, climate tech. There are different verticals, but somehow related to sustainability. So other than other verticals which have been already mentioned and are in line with the findings of the BlackRock Investment Institute, I would say that sustainability is a great one here in the UK. There is definitely room for investments. There is the attention of investors who are looking at the ESG performance even at startup level. So they are interested in spotting startups that can improve their ESG portfolio. And likewise, I would say there are communities and incubators that are sponsored by corporates. I think in UK one of them is BP, but again, this is one of them. I'm not trying to make publicity to any company. I'm sure that there are many of them, but in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that there are collaborations between corporates and startups through accelerators. And in so doing this, startups can accelerate the innovation within the corporates by bringing some fresh air, some new product or service, because startups, at the end of the day, they are so good at doing that. I still remember when I was in Silicon Valley, and we asked to an entrepreneur, why do you do that with a startup? Why corporate couldn't do the same thing you're doing? And he was, quite aggressive as an answer. And he said, you know what? They're simply not able. Corporates are simply not able to bring innovation. So that's why startups, we can do that. And the UK is well positioned to bring and move forward innovation in sustainability. So definitely everybody's welcome here.
Thank you so much, Marco, for your contribution when it comes to the future trends. And let's ask entrepreneur if there is any trends which possibly to pick and maybe work on some new projects and the new ideas. Adi, if you can join our discussion and share your view on the future trends, and if you see the opportunity for yourself and maybe your new ideas and businesses in that space.
Absolutely. Thank you, Slava. And I must cover, what Liliana and Marco mentioned. It's all about AI, sustainability, automations, improvements in the supply chain, etc. But what I need to mention here is the hype around AI has gone crazy, and every company nowadays is calling themselves AI powered, and we've been advised to say AI powered. And we've refused to do that because it is a hype, and we know it's more around like what happened with the .com in the 90s. But AI is here to stay. And now, if you want to differentiate yourself, don't mention AI powered, etc. But what I would like to say is that any company that adapts very quickly to the new trends, which is AI and automations, would obviously gain competitive advantage. And this is clearly we have AI in our product. We don't shout too much about it. It's on our roadmap, but we also need to consider that, for example, in our industry, in hospitality, the industry is still operating on manual ways and Excel spreadsheets and pen and paper. And for AI to work accurately and be implemented well, you need clean and structured data. So there's a lot of hype around AI, and clearly we all need to adapt very quickly, but we shouldn't forget the main point of making our customers happy and solving their pain points. So for me, this is just a quick interaction here. But don't forget your customers and what they need, rather than just think about AI and new tech.
Thank you so much, Adi. I think that was very important to highlight the importance of understanding the real problems to be solved rather than just following the recent trends in the technology. I would also ask Matt your opinion on this recent and the future trends. If founders, they actually need to jump into this trends train and pick up the opportunities. What's your opinion?
So there's definitely a case for you looking at trends. Let's take AI as an example. It's actually, from an investor's point of view, it's like a partner in a venture capital. We expect startups to have AI as an advantage to running their business. They need to use these, whatever tools are the best tools available to them to uncover new markets, to do research, to streamline documentation creation, all the internal stuff. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're an AI company or it directly impacts their product. That could be an innovation. And Adi mentioned her industry she's targeting is very old school. And in fact, AI is a great way to make new insights into large volumes of data. If that's your industry, AI could be your flagship product moving forward to crack new innovations and new opportunities. I'm, for example, working with a startup that is meant to be a bit of a giant killer. They're looking into a government-led program that has huge amounts of disparate data and lots of different databases, and companies struggle for performance. AI is a perfect fit for that, to be able to understand across multiple different silos and draw, conclusions from that.
So AI is a powerful, powerful tool, not just internally to run your business, but it could be an incredible way for you to be a giant killer against large corporates, large businesses, government institutions, or things that have always been done a certain way, but technology can make it better. That's the definition of a tech company.
Thank you so much, Matt, for your reflection. And that was an amazing session. We now finally move to a very important question of what entrepreneurs should know or be aware of when it comes to setting up the business in the UK in 2025. UK startup ecosystem is equally very competitive and crowded space when it comes to a variety of startups. How to be competitive, how to be attractive for investors, for the market, for the consumers, and what are the tips we may give to those entrepreneurs who are just about to launch the business in the UK in 2025. Yanis, please, if you can join our discussion.
So, there's the obvious answer, which is the fact, that the entrepreneurs need to understand well the investment landscape in the UK so that they can assess the opportunities. They need to look, I think it was Marco that raised some great points on sustainability, and also Liliana. You need to understand that, especially in the UK, sustainability is not just about greenwashing anymore. It has become a very important part of your supply chain. So it exceeds essentially the idea of bringing sustainability into your value proposition. It needs to be operational. They need to understand regulation. But I would like to offer a slightly more unorthodox view on this question. In my experience, after working with various startup teams, it's really important for the team to every team member to develop a high level of self-awareness. Why do I say that? Because startup teams, if they are dysfunctional, they cannot attract investment. They cannot run complex operations. They cannot solve problems. They cannot make decisions. And it's very easy for a team to become dysfunctional if egos prevail, if there's no trust, if there's not sufficient ability to solve conflicts. So, and I noticed in my journey throughout all these years that the startup founders who are willing to do the hard work to understand the blind spots, understand how they can develop themselves, how they can lead a team, are essentially building the roadmap for securing that sort of partners and that sort of trust they need in order to compete in complex environments. So I would say that understanding the environment, extremely important, but then you have to take that sort of approach of looking inside and see, what do I bring to the table? What do I not bring in to the table, so that you can form a team that is not dysfunctional, that is high performing, and that essentially operates with trust. I think that's a very important point in my experience, that it's especially in markets where there's too much competition and investors that have the ability and the opportunity to invest in multiple teams. So they do really take into account how does this team function? What will be my experience as an investor working with that team?
Thank you so much, Yanis, for your reflection. It was very important and valuable advice for those entrepreneurs who are just about to start. But let's ask the entrepreneur as well. Adi, if you can join and reflect, what are the tips you may give to those who are just about to launch their business in the UK in 2025? What they should be aware of?
I love the self-awareness bit, because in order to run a successful company, you need to understand yourself very well. You need to identify where your gaps are, and you need to be extremely self-aware how you can run the business forward. But for that, you need to dig very deep down in terms of where you can improve, how can you make your business better, how can you lead, how can you be the best leader of your team, how can you build a company made up of leaders as well. So I love the self-awareness bit, and I think a lot of founders out there just start to understand that, but it's a process, and it's a long-term process for all of us. Another thing we've mentioned earlier, so I'll probably just highlight these points, but understand the gaps, because this is where you can keep improving. Also focus on the details of running your company, because the small things make the biggest impact. And another thing I would like to mention as well is focus on the longer term financial sustainability of your company, because there's a lot of startups. They're moving very quickly, and a lot of them, there's a high turnover startups because they move far too fast. They don't build sustainable products. So focus on the longer term vision, and just thrive in the ecosystem, be in the heart of the ecosystem, make connections, go out there, meet your customers, speak to your customers, go out and solve real problems.
Thank you so much, Adi, for your reflection. The world moves fast in 2025, and there are so many things going on at the same time. How to be competitive, how to be relevant for the market, and how to succeed in 2025. That's the question, and that's maybe advice we want to give to our viewers. Matt, if you can summarize the main points about how entrepreneurs should make the right focus and make sure that they make right steps if they're just about to launch the business in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of bringing together some of the threads that were discussed today, I really have a great relationship with some of the academics which we see in the room. In fact, I've also had plenty of chats with pretty much everybody in the room. But the key here is that if they know themselves as an individual, they know what they're missing, and they chase that, from whether it be through an academic institution, whether it be through additional training, whether it be through professionals coming and supporting you, whether it be through an accelerator, a community, wherever you're going to source that what's missing in your business path, then go and find that. It's your mission as the founder, not just to come up with an idea, but to be committed to understanding what's missing in the pathway moving forward. And if the pathway moving forward is what's missing, I'm not sure what niche to go for. I'm not sure whether this technology fits me or not. That's your mission. Go and find people to answer your questions. The key here is being in control and responsible for your own moving forward. The UK ecosystem and the professionals within it have answers to everything you need. There's plenty of funding, despite what other people say. There's plenty of resources. And I speak to investors all the time. I've got money to spend on the right business. Your mission is to be that right business. So go out there and get started.
Thank you so much, Matt, for your contribution. I guess it's, as you mentioned, it's possible to find all the answers to any questions. The question is that we need to know what to ask, and we need to make an effort of asking people questions of how to make this idea happen. Thank you so much. It was amazing panel discussion about UK startup ecosystem in relation to opportunities for investors and opportunities for tech entrepreneurs. That was one of the first panel discussions focused on market opportunities for the UK, and we have more 11 panel discussions focused on other countries as well. So please stay tuned, follow our broadcasts and sessions. It was amazing, and I would like to thank all the speakers for their amazing insights and the contribution and effort they made to support upcoming entrepreneurs aiming to start a business in the UK. Thank you very much, and stay tuned for more sessions.